Hey Rudy, I'm so glad you joined because uh oh let's see. Let me let other people in.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me
Great.
okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Let's see, is this recording? It
Yes.
says it's recording. Okay,
Yep.
great. Um, okay. Yeah, Rudy, I'm actually glad you joined because you have actually a lot more experience with open source communities than me. And I would like you to maybe help chime in on some good practices and whatnot so that hey Jamin. So that you know so anyways, we're gonna record this and then other people can watch it. And but yeah, just please chime in when you can. Um, so, okay, let's see. We're just waiting for Brent and Maria to join. So I think they're going to try to join. Michael said he might join as well, so we'll see. Um, hopefully this. Okay, so here's oh,
Nice to meet you.
okay, so we have Brent. Hey Brent. We have Tyler. Is that you, Tyler? Okay, hey
Can't
Tyler.
hear you, Tyler. Hi, Brent. Nice to meet you.
Okay, I
Oh,
think
nice to meet
Michael looks like
you.
he was joining, but I don't know if Michael's on. I don't think Michael's on yet. Okay, join on the Zoom, not the Google Meet. Here, let me get rid of the Google Meet so nobody gets confused as to um let me edit this real quick so that people don't like think we're not um here. Okay, great. Okay, I just changed it to Zoom. So hopefully nobody gets okay, great. Okay, so guys, we're recording this and we'll post a video later. But we had a lot of people interested in becoming open source contributors. Oh, here's Michael. We had a lot of people interested in becoming open source contributors, and Rudy actually is our top contributor already. So, and actually, he volunteered to help be a moderator as well. So thank you, Rudy, for that. And Rudy's actually kind of a powerhouse in the open source community. So, which is so I'm honored that he could be here. And so all you guys expressed interest in becoming open source contributors. And so thank you for that. I really appreciate it because I think this is kind of like a big idea, and in order for it to get lifted, we need lots of hands, lots of people helping out on it. And so the purpose of today's call is for us to um, discuss about how to become an open source contributor on PDD. And and so maybe what I'll do is I'll share my screen, and then Rudy, like I mentioned, I kind of put Rudy on the spot here, so this is a very impromptu. I just Brent said, "Oh yeah, how do I become an open source contributor?" And I thought, okay, maybe I should invite other people to this as well. So this is a very impromptu meeting here. So let me share my screen with the repo, and then we could talk through this. And of course, I'm recording it so that you guys and then people in the future can also watch this. So let me share my screen. Can you guys see my screen? Okay. Okay, great. Okay, just out of curiosity, how many of you guys, is this a raise of hands? How many of you guys have been part of other open source projects? Okay, okay, two of you guys. Okay, so I've also been so a long time ago I used to be part of the 386 BSD. It got to be known as NetBSD, then finally BSD, and then Linux. And then Rudy here has been part of Debian, and you've done some other ones. Which other ones have you done?
Yep. I contributed to the network stack in the Linux kernel first. Then I'd spent about 8 years in Debian, contributed to Ruby, contributed to Node.js, helped make the async await standard, which is now, A plus promises. It's kind of gone through all languages. I'm real happy about that. And did a lot of open source science work at MPI. That's a
So
massively parallel, message passing system for supercomputers. All really fun stuff.
So probably all you guys are using some of Rudy's software, right? So the really cool thing about becoming an open source contributor is that um, your work sees the light of day, right? So your contributions are very, very visible and lots of people get to use it, right? And so in terms of like if you want some fame in the computer science community, this is one way to get some fame. It's a great way to also kind of build your resume because it's all public. Everyone can see your contributions. It's also a really great way to kind of build your skill sets. And I personally believe that in a few years, we're all going to be programming with prompts. I think this is the wave of the future. So you guys are like the avant-garde here. Okay, so and some of this stuff might be super like basic, but let's get started. Which is the first thing that you guys should do if you haven't done it already is is you guys can fork the repo, okay? And that would allow you to have your own version. And the basic process here is you make changes to your repo, and then you do a pull request, right? And then, I'm gonna have people like Rudy and myself who will kind of review it, make sure everything is kind of good, and then the things get merged in. And kind of so that's oh, and if you guys can, if you could help star this, that would be awesome. Because we're looking for more stars. But generally, I think um, a good way to get started if you haven't done anything before is to look at one of the current issues and work on one of those, right? So pick whichever one you're interested in, or if you have an issue that you're personally interested in, you could also just add it to the issues thing. I think this is a good way to get started. And I think issues are great because it's a way for us to discuss discuss like different directions because I have some ideas, but not all my ideas are correct. Some of them may have been wrong, some of them could have been better. And so it's always good to kind of you could start an issue, maybe start discussion on Discord as to like get other people's opinion, right? And then when things kind of coalesce, then you could actually start making some changes, and then do a pull request. So that's kind of like the basic process. Does that let me just stop there because I said a lot, but I wanted to see if anyone had any questions.
I have one comment, which is, I think Discord's a great way to do the discussion because it's more interactive, but some people prefer more like a forum or asynchronous mode. And in that case, there's also a discussions tab on every GitHub repo. So that's
Yeah.
another place you can start discussions if you want. I think it's not as popular as the Discord.
The Discord has the cool emojis, not like
Right, that's the main reason. GitHub emojis don't measure up.
yeah, it has the cool like whatever. So yeah, so and we were trying to build a community here, and I know some of you guys are local here in like Palo Alto, and so we might actually eventually have like some of the stuff in person and stuff like that. But we're really trying hard to build a community around PDD, right, around problem-driven development. And so oh, someone else is joining. Okay.
Oh, let me also add one more thing, Greg. You mentioned
Sure.
Resume Builder, and I just wanted to emphasize that all you really need to do is land a one-line PR once in a project that goes well. Like that's what I did for the Linux kernel. I made a one-line bug fix, and it enabled the NE2000 commodity network card to work all over the world because it was a really popular and cheapest card. So it had a big impact, but that was enough for me to put it on my resume. And ever since, that was like 25 years ago, I can now do kernel jobs. And so in this situation, if you can land one good line in this repo and it happens that PDD works, you can put AI in your resume. And that will be very interesting, I think, in the coming decades. So that's kind of what I'm looking for too. And it'd just be really fun.
Yeah, so for me personally, like, because I've had to hire like thousands of people in my career. Um, when I'm hiring engineers, I look at their GitHub because that's like to me that's like the source of truth, right? You could look at someone's resume like yeah whatever, but the GitHub is like the real stuff. Like that's how you know what's really going on. So Rudy's right. I mean, um, if you hey Woody, thank you for joining. By the way, Woody's a little bit famous. He runs something called CalPy, the California Python user group. And so if you guys ever are interested out on Python, he has these is it every Thursday or every
It's just the first Thursday of each month.
oh first Thursday. Sorry, I couldn't remember how often you did. So so thank you. And also Woody was kind enough to allow me to present at their user group. So thank you Woody for joining. And
Yeah,
this is being
thank you.
recorded so that people in the future kind of know how to contribute to PDD. Okay, so if you're a beginner, I would say, stick to some of the documentation stuff because that is very easy to do. If you're like pretty hardcore, there's some like this one here is kind of an interesting one. Actually, it had some interesting ideas, but this is like a big one, like a little bit vague. And sometimes some of these are not clear enough to work on. So you have to actually ask the person, hey, um, like, can you tell me more, right? So it's good to have a discussion. So that's what I recommend is this kind of a discussion so everyone kind of knows what's going on, everyone's on the same page. And then with page changes, right? And so one thing I would recommend, okay, so I think everyone kind of knows, I mean, you guys are, of course, if you're looking to be an open source contributor, you already know a little bit about prompt driven, but let me just talk a little bit about the philosophy a little bit. So one of the key things is is test, right? So general, in general, you should try to have generated test. And what we want to do is we want to append the test to the current test files. So there's a bunch in the test directory, there's a bunch of tests. And so when you submit unless it's a documentation PR or something really small, but when you, especially when there's code,
Hey, Greg, you're cutting
like
out. I think
maybe
you're
when there's
cutting
an
out.
issue, the first, like, if,
Your
oh,
your 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 network connection cut out a
can you guys
couple
hear me?
times. Could you just roll back 1 minute, or just
Okay,
say what you said in the last
okay.
minute again?
So yeah, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So bugs especially, but especially test, right? Make a test. And these days, because the test, you could really pretty much auto-generate them with AI, and you could use PDD to create the test itself. You could, like, there's a command called bug to test that would generate test. You append the test to the current test. So unlike code, like PDD, the philosophy around PDD is that uh, the code gets regenerated, but the tests are like a log file, it keeps growing. You keep appending test on there, right? And sometimes tests, they get obsolete. We should, we should delete the tests that don't make sense anymore. But in general, we keep appending test to the test file, and you should figure out which module it's affected, then you append to it. So kind of, so the process is you either create an issue or find an issue that you're interested in working on. You have a discussion, make sure that everyone's on the same page as to what it is. You create a test for it, right? So that you can replicate the problem, right? And then, and then make code changes. Now, one of the things is, and something that I know that Rudy is really, really keen on is, I'm planning to open source the prompts as well that generate the code. Some of the prompts are open sourced already, like the runtime prompt, but the compile time prompts aren't open source yet, but we have a plan to do that. I just need to get investor buy-in. So as soon as I get investor buy-in, they will be released as well. But you guys can make code changes. It's just a little bit harder to integrate in. But I think that yeah, so that's kind of like the basic setup is to discuss it, create a test, and then the code change or eventually prompt change, right? That's kind of like the basic flow. And what we want to do is the basic philosophy behind PDD is this idea of a dev unit, right? So dev unit is basically it's the prompt, so that's the source of truth, and that's why we want to open source the prompts. There's a code base, right, which is the traditional thing that people think about. There's the example interface, and this is important because a lot of times the prompts are used by other prompts, and so um, and so this example that PD generates allows other prompts to use it and allows the prompts to be composable. And then the test. So when you guys make changes, you want to kind of have all four of these files, like a complete PR, complete pull request. And just to be clear, so some of you guys may not know where pull request is. So what a pull request is basically changes to the code base that you want to merge back in, right? And then it makes it easy way for people to kind of review the work and then comment on it, and then there's sometimes a little bit back and forth, right, on that. And then once it's good, then it's merged in. But a good PR should have kind of like these four files in general, right? These four files. And so there'll be like probably like if it's a new module, it would be like four new files, or maybe it might be edits to existing files. But basically, uh, the principle behind PDD is these um, prompts as a source of truth, right? So basically, have at least the prompt and then changes to the prompt, and then that'll be in there. The other thing is we do have the sync command, and the sync command is like while the software is alpha, the sync command is even more alpha. So it's not perfect. But one thing also is one thing also is that if you make code changes, we also want to make sure the prompt stays updated. So the prompt and the code are synced up. So there's a command in PDD called PDD update. So you run PDD update so that it basically back propagates any code changes back to the prompt if you happen to change the prompt, right? I'm sorry, if you happen to change the code, so that the prompt and code always are synced up, right? So that's kind of important. Really, why don't you go ahead?
Just wanted to make sure I understand. I guess this means we can't really do any changes against the pre-existing Python where only you have the prompts right now, right? We have to
No,
wait
you can
before
make changes. It's
until the
just
day
that
the prompts are released.
no, you can make changes. It's just that I have to go update the prompt myself, right? So yeah, so we could do that. But it's better. So once the prompts are released, then you guys can make changes to the prompts directly. So the flow of PDD. So I'll tell you guys how PDD itself is built. PDD itself is built off of the README. So the README, you guys are probably wondering, why is that README so freaking detailed? It's because I use that as the source of truth for the prompts. So I use that as the source of truth, and then I create prompts off of it, right? And then of course, so the stuff in blue is the stuff that the engineer is responsible for, the developer, right? Is the spec, like in our case, is the README plus the prompt, right? So there's PDD actually has lots of prompts. So 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 I do generate this, but I do also edit the prompt as well. So the prompt is more detailed than the PRD. So what happens is like Rudy was really great. He did a pull request on GPT-5. So you could thank Rudy for helping to get the GPT-5 support. But
But it
it's
also
tough to
got
use
thrown away, right? Mine got
well,
thrown
not
away
not
because it was too hard to put in the prompt, and then you redid it a different way. Isn't that true?
it's hard because yeah, because the problem is like the flow with re-
Oh, Greg, you should turn off your video because your audio keeps on cutting out. You should turn off your camera just so we have better
does
chance
it
to hear.
now?
Could you repeat what you said?
Okay, hold on. Okay. I'll just talk a little bit slower. Um, so the basic flow for PDD when you create a new feature is you make a edit to the like a pull request to the README file, right? So this is I know this sounds crazy because a lot of times the documentation is the last thing that people do. With PDD, the very first thing you do is you modify the README, right? You modify the spec essentially, right? So you modify the spec and then you modify the prompts or generate the prompts, right? Um, the prompts are not regenerated. The prompts tend to get it. I use like Cloud Code or Codex CLI or I know like Jamin likes using Gemini CLI, right? But whatever tool you like to use, you modify the prompts, and then that's where that's the beginning of the Debian, and then PD theoretically should handle the rest of it. But of course, it works really well in my system and my set of LLMs. But the thing is, everyone has their own set of LLMs, and so the prompts are not that robust across all different LLMs. So the mileage will vary. Like I have access to like lots of keys, so I use all of them. So it works well for me because I have different strengths. I have, but for each of you guys, it's going to be slightly different because you're going to have access to different sets of LLMs than I do. And so everyone's system is going to be a little bit like a snowflake because everyone is going to have their own own LLMs that they have access to. And so anyways, um, yeah, um, so that's the basic philosophy behind PDD, right? So we were doing okay, if we're doing a bug fix, you don't have to change the README per se. You create the test and then you update the prompt or the code and then you do a pull request, right? Rudy, why don't you go ahead?
I just wanted to ask, so
Did you
if
want
I
to say
understand
something?
you correctly, what I should have done or what I should do again is resubmit a similar PR with the temperature column added, so we have a little more flexibility there, but also change the README so it's easier for you to update your prompts. Would that make sense till they're released?
Yeah. In fact,
Okay.
I think except for bug fixes, but for any feature enhancement, the best thing is change the README because the README drives everything, and then the prompts drive it. Um, so that's ideal. But we're still trying to work out the logistics of the prompts. So okay, just want to stop here. Does anyone else have questions or comments? And I personally think that when I was a contributor on BSD, which was the competitor to Linux. Um, I think it's always good to work on issues that you personally feel like that you're having issues with, right? That's always like because you're solving your own problem, right? So like, for instance, Rudy mentioned he had trouble with sync being running really slow on Windows. It's really hard for me. I probably want to work on that because I don't use Windows too much anymore, and so, but if it's really bothering you, Rudy, he would work on that, right? Or if someone else, like um, I think, Jimin, you mentioned that you were having some issues with um, that maybe you want the prompt to improve itself, right? You want about to start with a smaller prompt to have a more fancy prompt, right? So you don't have to do as much typing. So maybe that's the feature you work on. So I think it's always good to work on something that you're personally affected by or interested, because that's kind of self-motivation. And then also by doing this, you get an idea of how PDD itself works, right? Yeah, and then I think the other thing is if everyone gets stuck, it's good to ask everyone else in Discord, right? To ask the community. So we're all here to help each other. And let me tell you a little bit about my personal tech stack that I use. So I use Cursor. I have used the Cursor IDE. I use it mainly because Cursor has a great autocomplete for prompts. So when I write a prompt and we're editing a prompt, it will help auto complete, right? Which is really great. Um, and then I use Codex. I used to use Cloud Code, but I use Codex now because it has much better price performance. Let's put it that way. And it's about as good as Cloud Code. Um, and um, and I use that for one-offs, right? So like debugging is a good one, or if I want to make edit to a lot of different prompts. So it's really great for that. And then I use PDD to regenerate, right? So and then I PDD itself came out before sync. So before the PDD sync command. So it has like a gigantic make file. So like when you change a prompt or something, it regenerates, right, what it has to do. So yeah, so let me see. Oh, one other thing that Rudy started, which I really like, is because everyone's system is different. Um, he has this idea of a Docker file. So basically, to use a Docker file, so it's easy to replicate bugs. Um, uh, so let me, if for those of you that may not know what Docker is a way, it's like a lightweight virtual machine. So it allows us to kind of replicate each other's work because, like even though I'm using Mac and someone else might be using Mac, our Macs are set up differently, and then we could have lots of environmental issues like different versions or whatever. Or yeah, so that's kind of a good technique that really started introducing to this project. Let me see. Is there anything else that I should cover? The one thing I want to just point out here is um, uh, let me see here. Yeah, here it is. Okay. So in the docs, I have this document and it's it may not seem like much, but it's the doctrine, right? So you guys might remember like or for those of you that have did on Ruby, there was the Ruby on Rails or Ruby doctrine, right? It was Ruby on Rails doctrine, but anyways, so I decided to do the same thing for prompt-driven development. And so this is like the core principles that we're trying to follow. And we may change these over time. If you find some of them are just bogus, we'll get rid of them. Or the better ones, we'll also put them in here. But I'll just quickly talk about what they are. So basically, the prompts is a source of truth. That means that really it should start with the prompt, and then everything else should kind of change after that. The idea is we're trying not to do patches, we're trying to regenerate, and that's actually something that's kind of cool with PDD, is that um, as the LLMs get better, the code of PDD gets better. There's just kind of a cool thing, right? We generate the code and it just gets better. Like, wow, this works a lot better. So the other thing that's is key is synchronization. So a lot of times in most projects, the spec and the code and everything's out of sync. The idea with PDD is that everything's in sync. The code, the spec, everything's always in sync. And in the future, what I want to do is I want to have a thing where um, uh, right now, sync only works within a decided dev unit, right? The prompt, the example, the code, and the test. But in the future, what I want to do is I want to have it where sync will sync between dev units. And so instead of typing PDD sync hand paint or whatever, it would be PDD sync and that's it, right? And it would just automatically sync to. But that's future. That's the big vision, right? Is do something like that. I kind of talked about test accumulation. So test we do not regenerate. Code we regenerate, but test we do not regenerate. And the test is a big safety net. So every time there's a bug, we should not just immediately fix the bug. We should first create a test, replicate the bug. And this provides a safety net for PDD so that we don't regress backwards, right? Um, and then like a modular prompt graph. So basically, it's a fancy way of saying like prompts, like especially like PDD, build off of each other. In fact, maybe what I'll show you guys real quick, because some of you guys may not be familiar with this, but um, so in the README, I know it's a quite a thing. And by the way, one thing I do, if you guys don't know, is I put the link of the README into like Codex or Cloud Code CLI, right? And I ask that to do stuff for me. Like sometimes I don't want to write script, it would help me write a script out of PDD. But so one thing I want to show you guys is this idea of there's there's some special commands or a special XML tags. Let me see if I can find more of these. Yeah, so there's special XML tags. So like you can this include is very similar to like a C include, right? So basically this includes wherever this is in your file. So this is so like when you want to use have a prompt use another prompt, another dev unit, you do include, and then this is usually the path to the example of that dev unit, right? Um, PDD. So this is a comment. So PDD, whenever you see this is a comment. So like if you don't want the LM to see this, but you want a human to see this, you do this, right? And by the way, if you guys haven't already, we have a VS Code extension for PDD. So you guys could try that out and it will highlight this stuff, right? And then shell commands. So sometimes you want to have the output of a shell command in there. So you could do this as well. You could do shell. And then the last one is web. Now this one here, you have to have a key, a Firecrawl key, and they're free. So you just go to Firecrawl and create a key for yourself. But that's in order for this to work, and this will scrape the web page. So I like to do this sometimes when I want to include documentation from like how to use a certain API or whatever. So these are the only
Why do we
four
need Firecrawl? Why can't we just use like a curl or something for free?
because it does a better job. Because yeah, I found Firecrawl has more fancy stuff, so it makes it more LLM friendly.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it is free, but they do rate limit it. And in fact, one of the things I want to do, in fact, I'll put it on here right now, is one of the things I would like to do on in PDD is is um I'll add this issue right now. Is cache fire crawl results so it doesn't um uh, um, use up the API credit. Okay. Okay. So just like I mean, of course you could type more. It's probably better to create more so it's detailed. But basically, this is the basic idea is you whenever you have an idea. So you guys, everyone should they feel like is important here, and then we'll try to prioritize it, and the community will help prioritize what is kind of like important to do. But so feel free to put ideas here, right? Don't I should not be the source of all ideas. The ideas should come from the community, right? Um, okay, good. Let me see here. Let me see. Is there anything else I should cover? Okay, let me. I've been talking a lot. So what questions do you guys have? Oh, by the way, I've been working on 0.57 today, and I'm hoping to get it out today, which will have a new setup script. So James Levine, he wrote a nice little setup script that will help auto set things up. So that's included in. So when you run PDD, it will tell you to run PDD setup, and then also I'm including templates. So basically, this will so let's say, for instance, you have a PRD and you want to be able to split it into multiple prompts. It will do that, right? It will create the architecture file to help you do that. So, and then other people could also have these kind of templates, right? So that so there'll be these kind of like libraries of prompts that other people can use on their projects. So those are new things that should be in 0.57. I just gotta get everything passing the regression, so it's not ready yet. Um, Okay, but yeah, just wanted to just kind of give a quick onboarding to everyone. Um, Anyone have any questions, comments, thoughts, suggestions?
Maybe it's a little less on the technical end of things, but you talked about investors. I tagged you or I tagged an investor on your most recent LinkedIn post. He does
Oh,
open source
thank
companies.
you. I appreciate that. Yeah, so PDD, prompt driven, we have our demo day on October 7th. And so and so yeah, so then we begin our formal fundraise. We raised a little bit of money, but like enough to pay for the website, but not too much money. So then our formal fundraise will be um, uh, basically the a couple weeks after October 7th. And so one thing that would help if you guys can, or anyone that's willing, is is just user testimonial. So if you guys are open, or if you could, just record yourself with a little video, just say, hey, I used that, love it, or whatever. Right? That's also helpful because we will share that with investors, and that would help us try to raise money. So Bill, don't feel compelled, but if you're open to it, that would be awesome. But thank
You're
you, Woody,
finished
for that.
with
I
your
appreciate it.
if you're finished with your onboarding, could I do a few minutes of onboarding too, Greg?
Please, absolutely, Woody. Would you want to share your screen?
Sure. No, don't need to.
Okay,
I
why don't you
just
go
wanted
ahead?
to first start with a
Okay.
question. So, anyone who's ever used PDD for generate or any PDD command successfully that produced code from a prompt, please raise your hand. All right, Tyler, if you'd like, we can help you set up. Oh, you've done it already? You did it, Tyler?
Oh, you're muted. We cannot hear you.
You have to switch your mic. We can't hear you.
I think you're
Have to join audio in Zoom and switch your mic.
we can't hear you still.
Switch to American Sign Language.
Yeah, let me turn off the NVIDIA.
Oh, we hear you. We
It's
hear you.
NVIDIA broadcast was like
There you
broken.
go.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
like-
So Tyler, you used it before or no?
I touched it a little bit, but I've still been like sick in bed since you told me about it. I've just been like looking at the Discord, and I'll start working on it more as soon as I'm like not incapacitated as much.
Okay, I was gonna say if you want to share your screen right now, we're happy to help you. But if you don't feel up to it, it's okay too, because it probably only take 5 minutes. We've all set it up already.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. We should all reach out for help if you guys need help, like I or other people can help. And so this is really, we're trying to build a community here, right? I think that's really important. And so, um, yeah, and I'm also going to try to do more like we had our launch 2 weeks ago, but we're going to probably have more kind of meetups and stuff like that because we're trying to build a community around this. Because this is a very different like software programming paradigm. And so we need lots of people to get involved, and we need other people to build third-party things as well. So like James, he also built a a VS Code extension configurator. It's actually pretty fancy, but it's not ready for him to release. But he showed me it looks really fancy. So that's something else that we can look forward to. So you guys should also feel free to make things on top of PDD. So yeah. So but this is kind of like our people who are working on like interested in contributing to the open source of PDD. But Reed, I interrupt you. Why don't you go ahead? Do you want to see a few other things?
Oh no, that was it. Originally when Linux first came out, it was just set up parties. That's where it starts. So I knew I wanted to make sure everyone has the opportunity to get set up if they're feeling up to it. And if not, we'll wait till people are. So every time I'm in one of these meetings, I'm gonna always offer to set people up because I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Rudy. Yeah, that's actually a good idea. I remember I'm gonna date myself, but way back when, like the 3 and 6 BSD, it's gonna sound crazy to you guys, but we have to put it on something called diskettes. Some of you guys may not know what that is, but we had to put it on a bunch of diskettes, and so we literally would like shove them in, like bring out like 10 diskettes or whatever, right? We would shove them from people's computers. Terrible. Now today it's all over on the web, so it's easy. But yeah, we literally have physical in-person setup parties, so it's pretty crazy. But yeah, so. But I'm honored that all you guys are interested in participating, and don't feel like you have to be do the biggest baddest issue. It could be something small, like a stock improvement is fine, right? Even ideas are good, right? Even if like you don't necessarily do, but you have an idea of like, oh, this would be much easier if we did it this way, or there's a bug here. Even that bug reports are great. Like bugs. Especially in the age of AI, where generating code is very easy, finding the bug is actually sometimes more than half the battle. And I can tell you, PDD has a lot of bugs. So right now, like PDD is still 0.56, and hopefully today or maybe tomorrow will be 0.57. But until we get to what I think I consider a stable state, we're not going to be 0.10 yet. So I'm trying to save that for when we kind of get out of this kind of early alpha stage. And the other thing I would say is use PDD to build your stuff. Like if you have homework, if you have work, try using it, right? And I think that's the best way versus just doing demo projects. So feel free to use it for your as your daily driver and you'll find a lot of things that work well, a lot of things that don't work well. And really we're trying to build a knowledge in the community. So if you find something that works well, hey, maybe we could adopt it. Maybe there's ways to make it, more automated for everyone else. Okay, anyone have any other questions, comments, thoughts? Okay.
What's the official hello world for PDD?
Oh, it's an example. So there's an
That's
example.
the drawing on the screen thing?
No. There's actually a hello.
Okay.
There's actually a hello example. That's a one-liner,
Oh, okay.
one-liner prompt. That's just a simple, yeah. And that one I know sync works because I put that as part of my regression. So that
Nice.
one works. But I think the long-term vision is that we're going to have a cloud version of PDD, which will have a standardized set of models. Because one of the big issues right now with PDD is that everyone has their own set of models, and the prompts aren't that robust. It's all tuned for my set of LLMs and not your set of LLMs. So everyone has a little bit different experience with PDD because everyone's everyone's set of LLMs are different, and so it's a little bit problematic because of that. So the cloud will kind of normalize it, and the cloud we want to do other things like um, so like there's three parameters in PD that you guys may not know of. One is dash dash strength, and that's how you select how strong of a model you want. There's dash dash temperature, and that sets a temperature for the model. And there's dash dash time, and that's the number of thinking tokens. And so right now for the CLI, that's all manual, right? So you guys set that to whatever you want. But in the cloud, the idea that would be auto set. And so the idea by using the cloud is it would be cheaper to use because it would automatically figure out what is the cheapest setting that would still works essentially. So that's the things but the cloud's off a ways. We're just we're trying to get the CLI working. But great question, Woody. Okay, guys. Any other questions, thoughts? Okay, well, hey, this is the first ever onboarding for, and hopefully we'll have more of these for other contributors. And so you guys are gonna be pioneers. You guys will like will live in infamy because future people will watch this and say, oh, this is how they got started, right? Okay, guys, I think we're set. Okay, thank you everyone for attending, and we'll do more of these. So appreciate it.
Thanks for hitting record for
Okay.
the documentary.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Really
Yeah, I
appreciate it.
recorded it. Yeah, thank you guys. And
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna I'll post it to
Thank you so
YouTube.
much.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.